When silence breaks, the awakening of Terra's wrath, the void between worlds had never felt so heavy with threat. Supreme Admiral Vexthan of the Nexari Empire stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Dominion's Edge, watching the blue marble, called Earth, grow larger through the massive viewport. Behind him stretched the greatest military force his species had ever assembled, 47 warships of the elite Crimson Fleet, each one capable of reducing entire worlds to ash. His scaled hands gripped the railing as he studied the third planet from the yellow star. For decades, this system had remained stubbornly independent, while the Empire consumed galaxy after galaxy. The humans had ignored every demand for submission, every threat of annihilation. They simply continued their quiet existence, trading peacefully with neutral worlds and avoiding all contact with the Empire's expansion fleets. Today, that defiance would end. Status report, Vexthan commanded, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally overseen the conquest of 47 star systems. Sub-Commander Zarekth stepped forward, her 4 eyes scanning the tactical display. All battle. Groups in position, Supreme Admiral. Long-range sensors detect minimal orbital defenses around the human homeworld. No signs of a defensive fleet. Their largest vessels appear to be cargo freighters and research ships. A low rumble of amusement passed through the bridge crew. After months of preparation for what they expected to be a challenging campaign, the reality seemed almost insulting. The humans had built a civilization without teeth, soft and vulnerable. Pathetic, muttered Fleet Captain Mortis from his position at the weapons console. His species, the Korath, had evolved from apex predators, and he could barely comprehend. A race that seemed to have no concept of military might. We brought our finest warriors to fight merchants and scientists. Vex then raised a clawed hand for silence. Despite his commander's dismissive attitudes, something about this situation felt wrong. In his centuries of conquest, he had learned to trust his instincts. Civilizations didn't survive in the hostile galaxy without some form of protection. The humans had not only survived, but thrived for millennia while empires rose and fell around them. Open communications to the human homeworld, he ordered. It's time to make our intentions clear. The main screen shifted to show a communication array powering up. Within moments, they had established contact with Earth's primary communication hub. A human face appeared on screen, middle-aged with graying hair and calm brown eyes that showed no trace of fear despite looking at the most powerful military force in known space. This is Director Harrison of Earth's Diplomatic Corps, the human said simply. We're receiving your transmission. Vex then stepped forward, allowing his full imposing height and predatory features to fill the screen. I am Supreme Admiral Vexthan of the Nexari Empire. Your system is now under Imperial jurisdiction. You have 72 hours to acknowledge our sovereignty and prepare for integration into the Empire. Any resistance will result in the complete sterilization of your world. The human's expression didn't change. He listened calmly, as if Vexthan had just announced the weather, rather than threatening genocide. I understand your position, Admiral. Earth's response will be transmitted within the specified time frame. The communication ended abruptly, leaving the Empire fleet in stunned silence. No pleading, no negotiation attempts, no desperate offers of tribute, just calm acknowledgement and a promise of response. Arrogant mammals, snarled Mortis. They think their primitive technology can protect them. But Zarekth looked troubled. Supreme Admiral, shouldn't they be mobilizing their defenses? Every species we've conquered has at least attempted to mount a resistance by now. Vex then nodded slowly. Maintain battle readiness, but hold position. Let's see what response these humans believe they can offer. The wait stretched through the next day. Empire scouts reported no unusual activity on Earth or its colonies. No emergency fleet mobilizations, no evacuation attempts, no frantic construction of new defenses. The humans seemed to be going about their daily lives as if an extinction level. Threat wasn't hanging over their heads. It was maddening. Perhaps they're paralyzed by fear, suggested one of the bridge officers. Some species simply shut down when faced with overwhelming odds. Or they're planning something, Zarak muttered, her tactical mind refusing to accept that any spacefaring civilization could be so naive about the realities of galactic politics. Her answer came exactly 72 hours after the ultimatum was delivered. A single ship emerged from the shadow of Earth's moon, accelerating steadily toward the Empire fleet. It was sleek and dark, roughly the size of an Empire cruiser, but with lines that seemed to flow like liquid metal. No obvious weapons ports were visible, no massive armor plating or shield generators. The bridge of Dominion's edge erupted in laughter. One ship? Mortis wheezed between chuckles. They're sending one ship against our entire Crimson Fleet? Even Vexthan found himself momentarily stunned by the apparent futility of the gesture. He had expected desperate resistance, perhaps a surprise attack from hidden defensive platforms. Instead, the humans had sent what appeared to be a diplomatic vessel on a suicide mission. Incoming transmission from the human vessel, reported the communications officer. Put it through, Vexthan ordered, curious to hear what final words these doomed humans might offer. A woman appeared on the screen, wearing a simple dark blue uniform with minimal insignia. Her black hair was pulled back in a practical style, and her dark eyes held the same unsettling calmness that seemed to characterize all human communications. The nameplate on her uniform read, Captain E. Vasquez. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Terran vessel Sovereign's Will, she announced. We're here to respond to your ultimatum. Captain, Vexthan replied, making an effort to keep mockery out of his voice. I appreciate your courage in coming here personally, but surely you understand the futility of your position. One ship cannot stand against the Empire's finest. Captain Vasquez tilted her head slightly. Admiral, may I ask how many worlds your Empire has conquered through force? The question caught him off guard. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. What relevance does that have? And in all those conquests, how many civilizations chose to fight rather than surrender? All of them, initially. Fear and pride make species do foolish things, but they all learn wisdom eventually. Then you've never encountered a civilization that chose neither surrender nor hopeless resistance. Vasquez's expression remained perfectly neutral. You've never met a species that spent centuries preparing for this exact moment. Something cold touched Vexthan's spine. What are you saying? I'm saying, Admiral, that Earth's silence was never fear. It was preparation. We've been watching the Empire's expansion for over 300 years. We've studied your tactics, your technology, your military philosophy, and we've spent that entire time developing a response that would only be used if absolutely necessary. If responding to her words, the human ship began to change. The dark hull started to shimmer with an internal light, and the flowing lines of its design seemed to shift subtly. Energy readings from the vessel spiked beyond what Empire sensors could accurately measure. Impossible, whispered the science. Officer, no ship that size could generate that much power. Mortis was no longer laughing. Supreme Admiral, recommend we open fire immediately before they can. His words were cut off as the Sovereign's will simply vanished. One moment it was visible on all sensors. The next it had disappeared completely. Not cloaked, not hidden. Behind stealth technology, but genuinely gone as if it had never existed. Where did it go? Vexthan demanded. Asterisk. Before anyone could answer, the ship reappeared directly in the center of the Empire formation, equidistant from all major vessels. Proximity alarms screamed as the human vessel materialized less than 1,000 meters from 3 different Empire destroyers. How did they? Zarax began, but her question was answered as the Sovereign's will moved again. Not accelerating, not turning with conventional thrusters, but simply sliding through space as if the laws of physics were optional suggestions. All ships open fire, Vex then roared. Destroy that vessel now. The Crimson Fleet unleashed hell. Plasma cannons erupted with light that could melt asteroids. Particle beams capable of cracking moons lanced through space. Quantum torpedoes that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously streaked toward their target. Every shot missed. The human ship moved between the attacks like water flowing around stones. It twisted through three-dimensional space in ways that hurt to watch, occasionally seeming to exist in multiple locations at once. The devastating barrage that should have reduced it to component atoms instead struck empty void, or, worse, other Empire ships whose aim had been thrown off by the impossible evasive maneuvers. Cease fire, Vex then commanded as he watched two of his own destroyers accidentally damage each other in the chaos. All ships cease fire. The space around them fell silent, except for the hum of cooling weapons and the crackle of emergency repairs being broadcast from damaged vessels. The Sovereign's will hung motionless in the center of the formation, completely undamaged and somehow radiating an aura of patient waiting that Captain Vasquez's image reappeared on the main screen. Are you finished with your demonstration, Admiral? What? Are you? Vex then whispered. We're the same species you demanded surrender from 3 days ago. The difference is that we've had time to prepare for visitors like you. She paused, and for the first time, her expression showed something other than neutral professionalism. It might have been sadness. We really hoped it would never come to this. Your technology, ... It's impossible. No known physics allows for what we just witnessed. You're right, no known physics. We had to discover new ones. Captain Vasquez's image shifted as she looked directly into the camera. Admiral Vexton, your empire has built its power on the assumption that greater force always defeats lesser force. You've never encountered a civilization that refused to play by those rules. The human ship pulsed with that strange internal light, and suddenly every Empire vessel felt a subtle vibration through their hulls. Not an attack, but a gentle reminder of presence. I'm going to show you something now, Captain Vasquez continued. Not to threaten you, but to help you understand what you're actually facing. 3 Empire destroyers that had been damaged in the friendly fire incident suddenly found themselves surrounded by brilliant blue energy. The crews watched in amazement as their hull breaches sealed themselves, their damaged systems repaired, and their power levels returned to full capacity. We could have destroyed your entire fleet in the first 10 seconds of this encounter, the captain said quietly. Instead, we repaired your ships. Do you understand what that means? Vex then stared at the tactical display, showing his restored destroyers. His mind, trained in centuries of military strategy, struggled to process the implications. An enemy that could destroy you, but chose to heal you instead. Power that could remake matter at the molecular level, used for construction, rather than destruction. What do you want from us? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The same thing we've wanted for 300 years, Captain Vasquez replied. To be left alone to live in peace. We don't want your empire, Admiral. We don't want to conquer or rule or expand. We just want the choice to exist on our own terms. She leaned forward slightly, and her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. But if forced to choose between peace and survival, we will choose survival. And we will ensure that choice never has to be made again. The communication ended, leaving the Empire's most elite fleet alone with a single human warship and the terrifying realization that everything they thought they knew about power, technology, and warfare had just become obsolete in the silence. That followed, Supreme Admiral Vexton faced the most difficult decision of his long military career. Attack a vessel that had just demonstrated technology beyond his comprehension, or retreat and try to process what humanity's emergence might mean for the Empire's future. The choice, he realized, had already been made for him. The only question now was whether his pride would let him admit it. The stars remember, when one ship changed everything. The silence stretched across the void like a held breath. 47 of the Empire's deadliest warships hung motionless around a single human vessel, their crews struggling to comprehend what they had just witnessed. Technology that seemed to mock the fundamental laws of physics. Power that could heal instead of destroy. And most unsettling of all, restraint from a species that clearly possessed the ability to erase them all without effort. Supreme Admiral Vexthan stared at the tactical display, his mind racing through possibilities and finding none that offered comfort. In his centuries of conquest, he had developed an instinct for reading potential threats. Every warning sense he possessed was screaming that the sovereign's will represented danger beyond his ability to comprehend, let alone counter. But retreat was unthinkable. The Crimson Fleet had never withdrawn from battle. His reputation, his career, the Empire's entire military doctrine depended on the principle that superior force always triumphed. To turn away from a single ship, regardless of its capabilities, would be to admit that everything the Empire stood for was a lie. Supreme Admiral, Zarak said quietly from beside him, recommend we contact Imperial Command for guidance. This situation is beyond our operational parameters. No, the word came out harder than Vexthan intended. We are the Empire's finest. If we cannot handle one ship, what does that say about our military strength? Mordis looked up from his console, where damage reports from the accidental friendly fire were still streaming in. Sir, with respect, that's not just any ship. Our weapons couldn't even track it properly, let alone hit it. And the power levels we detected ... are irrelevant. Vexthan cut him off. Every species has technological advantages. The key is finding their weakness and exploiting it. He turned to face his bridge crew, forcing confidence into his voice. The humans may have superior defensive capabilities, but they've shown us they're reluctant to use offensive force. That reluctance is their weakness. He moved to the center of the bridge, where the holographic command interface awaited his orders. All ships, prepare for coordinated assault pattern Nexus 7. Target the human vessel with everything we have. Overwhelm their defenses through sheer volume of fire. Sir, Zarak protested, if they wanted to destroy us, they could have done it already. Maybe we should consider what? Surrender to a single ship? Vexthan's eyes blazed with the pride of his species. The Empire does not negotiate with terrorists. The Empire does not retreat from the battlefield. And the Empire does not show weakness to inferior species, regardless of their parlor tricks. As his fleet moved into attack formation, the sovereigns all remained perfectly still, as if waiting patiently for them to complete their preparations. On the Empire flagship's main screen, Captain Vasquez's image reappeared unbidden. Admiral, she said, and her voice carried a note of genuine sorrow. Please don't make us do this. Your fleet can leave this system safely. Your crews can return to their families. But if you force our hand ... your hand? Vexthan laughed bitterly. You speak of choices as if you have any power here. You have one ship against our entire fleet. Advanced technology or not, mathematics is mathematics. Captain Vasquez closed her eyes for a moment, and when she opened them, something fundamental had changed in her expression. The diplomatic patience was gone, replaced by the cold resolve of someone who had just made an irreversible decision. Mathematics, she repeated quietly. Yes, let's talk about mathematics, Admiral. Your fleet masses approximately 47 million tons. Your combined firepower could sterilize a planet's surface in minutes. Your shield generators could probably deflect the output of a small star. She paused. Would you like to know the mathematics of what we brought to this encounter? Before Vexthan could respond, the space around the Sovereign's will began to change. The starfield itself seemed to bend and warp, creating visual distortions that made Empire sensors scream with conflicting data. The human ship wasn't just moving through space anymore. It was reshaping space around itself. Impossible readings, the science officer reported, his voice shaking. Sir, they're generating a localized gravitational field strong enough to affect light itself. The energy requirements for that should be impossible. Captain Vasquez finished through the communication link. You're thinking in terms of generating energy. We learned to borrow it instead. The Sovereign's will split. One moment, there was a single ship hanging in space. The next, there were 5 identical vessels, each one as solid and real as the original. Empire sensors couldn't detect any difference between them. They all registered as genuine, all showed the same impossible energy signatures, all moved with the same fluid grace through dimensions that normal matter shouldn't be able to access. Holographic projections, Mortis whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. Quantum superposition, Captain Vasquez corrected. We're not projecting images, Admiral. We're existing in multiple probability states simultaneously. Each ship you see is equally real until we choose to collapse the wave function. Vexthan's hands tightened on the command rail. All ships target all 5 vessels. Destroy them all. The Crimson Fleet opened fire with everything they had. Enough destructive force to crack a moon erupted from 47 warships simultaneously. The barrage lit up local space like a newborn star, energy beams and projectiles converging on the human vessels from every possible angle. When the light faded, all 5 Sovereign's will ships remained completely unharmed. Direct hits confirmed. On all targets, the weapons officer reported in disbelief. No penetration, no shield flare. It's as if our weapons struck nothing at all. Temporal displacement, Captain Vasquez explained matter-of-factly. We moved ourselves 1/10 of a second into the future relative to your weapon's fire. From our perspective, you shot at where we were, not where we are. The implications of that statement hit the Empire crew like a physical blow. Time manipulation. Casual, effortless time manipulation as a defensive measure. What kind of civilization developed technology that treated the fundamental constants of reality as adjustable parameters? This is madness, Vexthan snarled. No species should possess such power. You're right, Captain Vasquez agreed. No species should need such power, but you made it necessary. The 5 ships began to move, not toward the Empire fleet, but around it, weaving between the massive warships like dancers performing an intricate ballet. As they moved, space itself seemed to ripple in their wake, creating visual effects that hurt to look at directly. What are they doing? Zarakth demanded .her. Answer came as the first Empire destroyer simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not torn apart, it was there one moment and gone the next, leaving behind only empty space and confused sensor readings. We've removed it from this timeline, Captain Vasquez announced calmly. The crew is safe, in a parallel dimensional phase, but the ship no longer exists in your reality. A second destroyer vanished. Then a third. The human ships moved through the Empire formation like ghosts, and wherever they passed, massive warships simply ceased to be. No explosions, no debris, no death. Just absence. Stop. Vexthan roared. I order you to stop. The Sovereign's will ships paused in their deadly dance. You still don't understand, Captain Vasquez said sadly. You keep thinking in terms of orders and authority. But we're not part of your power structure, Admiral. We never were. Then what do you want? What will it take for you to leave us alone? For you to leave us alone. For the Empire to mark the Sol system as Forbidden's territory. For your species to understand that some boundaries should not be crossed. Vex then looked at his tactical display. Half his fleet was gone, removed from existence with surgical precision. His remaining ships were completely helpless against an enemy that could manipulate time, space, and probability itself. Pride warred with survival instinct in his chest. And if we refuse, then we will ensure that refusal becomes impossible. Space around the remaining Empire ships began to glow with soft blue light. The crews watched in fascination and terror, as their vessels became surrounded by energy fields that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. What you're seeing now, Captain Vasquez explained, is a quantum lock. Your ships are being held in a stable probability matrix. You can't move, can't fire your weapons, can't even send communications beyond this local area. You're trapped in a single moment of time, and we can keep you here indefinitely. This is war, Vex then whispered. No, Admiral. This is what happens when war becomes obsolete. The captain's image leaned forward, and her expression showed not triumph, but exhaustion. We didn't develop this technology to conquer or dominate. We developed it because we knew that someday someone like you would come to our door with threats and ultimatums. We spent 3 centuries preparing for this conversation. The blue energy fields began to pulse rhythmically, and the Empire crews could feel something changing in the fundamental structure of their ships. Not damage, but alteration at the molecular level. Your vessels are being modified, Captain Vasquez continued. We're installing quantum beacons in each ship's core. From now on, we'll be able to locate any Empire vessel anywhere in the galaxy instantly. If your fleet ever threatens a civilian population again, if your Empire ever attempts to subjugate another peaceful world, we will know about it immediately. You can't monitor our entire Empire, Mortis protested. We already are. Have been for decades. How do you think we knew exactly when and where you would appear in our system? She smiled sadly. Did you really think we'd spend 3 centuries preparing for this without keeping track of potential threats? The modifications completed themselves with elegant efficiency. Each Empire ship now carried within its hull a piece of technology that shouldn't exist, installed by a civilization that had apparently transcended the normal limitations of physics. The beacons serve another purpose, Captain Vasquez added. They're recording devices. Everything your crews see and hear from now on will be transmitted to a secure Earth facility. Your Empire's actions will be documented and preserved, no matter where in the galaxy they occur. Vex then felt the last of his authority crumbling away. You're making us into spies for your species. We're making you into witnesses for history. When your Empire falls, as all empires eventually do, there will be a record of what happened. The civilizations you've conquered will know the truth about their oppressors. The quantum locks holding the Empire ships began to fade, and normal. Space reasserted itself around the fleet. The Sovereign's will ships slowly merged back into a single vessel, probability functions collapsing into unified reality. Your fleet is free to leave, Captain Vasquez announced. Return to your Empire. Tell them what you've seen here. Make sure they understand that Earth is no longer a target for conquest. And if they don't listen? Vex then asked. The human. Captain was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. Then the next time we meet, we won't be so gentle. The communication ended, leaving the Empire fleet alone with their damaged pride and their impossible new understanding of humanity's capabilities. Around them, space held the memory of what had just occurred, the day a single ship had faced the Empire's finest and rewritten the rules of galactic power. Supreme Admiral Vexthan looked at his reduced fleet, at the quantum modifications now permanently part of his ships, at the tactical display that showed readings still fluctuating from contact with technology that shouldn't exist. His entire worldview had been shattered in the span of a few hours. "Set course for Imperial space," he ordered quietly. "Maximum velocity." As the Crimson Fleet began its retreat, the Sovereign's will remained in position, a dark silhouette, against the stars, watching, waiting, a silent guardian that had chosen to show mercy when it could have chosen annihilation. Behind them, Earth continued its quiet rotation, looking as peaceful and vulnerable as ever. But now the galaxy knew the truth. Some silences hide not weakness, but strength beyond imagination. And sometimes the most dangerous enemy is the one who refuses to be your enemy at all. The stars themselves seemed to whisper the lesson that would spread throughout the Empire's territories in the weeks to come. Beware the wrath of a patient species, for when they finally act, gods themselves. Take notice. ****.